This video is sponsored by Audible.
Hey everyone, Ace of Clay here and welcome to another video. If you are new here, I'm a sculptor and every week I make a new sculpture. In today's video, we're kicking off October with a plague doctor. Not gonna lie, I had no idea what a plague doctor was before you guys started suggesting one left and right, but I'm really glad you did because he's gonna make an awesome sculpt. The creepy mask, the robes, the whole thing, it's right up my alley. If you're not familiar with plague doctors, they were medical physicians who treated victims of the bubonic plague, and they wore the creepy costume to protect themselves from infection. So with all that said, if you want to see me sculpt one of these guys, then let's get started. Alright, first step, armature. And as always, all of the materials and tools that I use in this video are listed in the description box below, along with my affiliate links if you want to purchase anything. And as you saw there, I used some 12 gauge aluminum wire to shape out the shoulders and torso area, twisted it together at the bottom, and now I am covering that with some aluminum foil to bulk out the bottom of this guy's robes. Then I secured everything with some masking tape, and now I'm measuring out the arms and attaching those with masking tape as well. Now we're just gonna bulk out his torso. And it's time to start adding the clay. We're using Super Sculpey Original. And then as I'm adding the clay, I'm just working the clay a little bit to smooth it out to get it ready for details. I always like adding details to a nice smooth surface, even if I'm adding more clay on top of it. I don't know, maybe it's like an OCD thing, but that's how I work. And now it's time for a process that everybody that watches this channel should be familiar with by now. We are going to add some folds and wrinkles to the robes. These are snakes of clay that taper at one end. I am attaching them to the robes and blending the edges in with everything else. I'm not going to show you the entire process because it's just the same thing over and over again, but that's what we're doing. We've done this for many figurines up until this point. And then, like I've mentioned in previous videos, I'm not just throwing random snakes of clay everywhere to make these folds and wrinkles. I'm thinking about how gravity would pull the fabric on a robe, and I'm just sort of using that as my mental reference in my head. If you have trouble with making your fabric look believable, just throw a sheet over a chair and use that as your reference. It'll help you more than you'd think. Alright, the bottom of the front is almost done. Let's get some more clay. Sculpey, I really don't like your new boxes. Forget this. Come on now, I can't even put the leftovers back in the box now. Anyway, let's continue those folds and wrinkles. There we go, that's looking pretty good. Check it out. Alright, for the next step, I just want to add another piece of fabric in the front just to add another level of dimension, but this doesn't end up working because I don't like how it looks. It's just a little too random for me, and yeah, so we're just going to get rid of that, and we're just going to add some more folds and wrinkles to the torso area. Alright, now that that's at a good point, we're just going to poke in a skewer for the neck. And then this is just going to sort of be like my point of reference for where the head will be as I finish the rest of the body. So now we're just going to add a nice little belt, like so. This is a snake of clay that I put vertically through my pasta maker to get this nice belt shape. And now we're just going to put a little buckle on there with a tiny snake of clay, like so. Not bad. And then finish it off with that little piece right there. And then we're going to go in with our Explorer tool to add some stitching. Now for another detail, we're going to give this guy a nice little bag over his shoulder This is where he can put his like herbs and medicine or whatnot. And then we're just shaping out this teardrop shape for the bag, making the opening, and blending that in with the bottom of the bag. And let's see how that looks. I really don't like that strap, so we're just gonna take that off and then put some more wrinkles on because my ADD decided to take over. And now we're gonna make the strap. I decided to make it look like rope. I thought the texture of the rope would look nice up against everything else, and this is just a very thin snake of clay that I'm rolling together to make the rope texture. It's super easy and super effective. Alright, that's looking pretty good. Now we're just gonna add some rope to that bag, and then roll the textured edge of my sculpting tool on that to create a fabric texture. Add some bacon bond, stick it on, and then fix that fabric texture that I just ruined by pressing it on. And then add a fabric texture to the rest of the robes, because why not? And now he's ready for his first bake. Then once he's baked and completely cooled down, it's time to start the arms. So I'm just going to bend the wire into the position I want them to be in, like that, and then we're just going to add some snakes of clay, like so. Now we're just going to trim off some excess because we're going to add some nice long gloves. But before we make the gloves, we're going to make this guy a staff. So I'm just straightening out this scrap piece of wire here, and then rolling out a snake of clay, pressing the wire into the snake of clay, and then bringing up the clay around the wire, and then gently rolling it to make sure everything is nice and smooth. And then we're going to top off the cane with a nice old-fashioned medical symbol. And basically the symbol is going to be a little cylinder on top, and then I'm going to make some wings to poke into the sides of it. Just going to of course attach that with some bacon bond. Now I'm just cutting out the wings like that, making sure they're the right size. And then using my Explorer tool to add some details. Alright, not bad. That works. Now I'm just going to pre-bake the wings so that when they're hardened I can just poke them right into the clay. Now it's time to start the head. I'm just creating the core with some aluminum foil, and then I'm covering that in clay. Now I'm just poking in some wire to support that nice long point in the front, and I'm covering that in clay. Alright, let's see how that looks. It's a little too long, so let's trim off the end a little bit. That's much better. Now we're just going to bring out the front of the face a little bit more with some more clay. Now at this point I was trying to decide whether or not I wanted him to have a hard mask or a fabric leather one, and I decided on the leather one just because I thought the extra texture on his face would look really cool. So I'm glad I chose that. We're just adding some snakes of clay here to create the texture I was just talking about. Now once that mask is at a good point, it's time to create the goggles in it. I will be painting the domed side of these 12mm cabochons black so that I can press them into the clay, and the surface of the glass on the goggles will be flat, not domed. This was super easy and super effective. Then once the cabochons are completely dry, we're going to press them in. And you see how the back of the cabochon is flat? That's what I wanted. Now before we go any further on the goggles, I'm just going to take my Explorer tool to create some seams in the mask and some nice stitching. And that's looking pretty good. Alright, now I'm going to detail the goggles. I'm just adding this very thin snake of clay around the edges of it, and then I'm going to add some details to make it look like metal. And how many times have I said snake of clay in this video? Alright, now back to the cane really quick. I'm adding some bacon bond to the sides like that, and then pressing in the freshly cured wings. Let's see how that's gonna look. Not bad. Just gonna add a couple more details to the cane. Then add a nice little design on the front. Then once it's done, we're just going to pre-bake this with the head. And then once they're baked and completely cooled down, I'm going to attach the head with a little bit of bacon bond, like that, and then bulk out the neck with some aluminum foil. I'm just gonna grab some more clay. Well, that's not very satisfying. Now we're gonna cover that foil. Now I'm just gonna take another piece of clay with a nice rounded edge, position it closer to the front of his face, and this is going to create a sort of hood piece. And I'm not adding this to the top because he's gonna have a hat, and I don't want it to push the hat out that he will have eventually. Now we're just gonna add some folds and wrinkles to that new fabric that we just added. And now it's time to add his staff. Just gonna trim the wire, and that's a little too short, so we're gonna stick it in his other hand instead. Not the end of the world. Now I'm just using my needle nose pliers to wrap the wire around the cane, and then attach his hand on top of that. And all of the footage I have of sculpting this hand is out of frame, so I'll show you how I do the other one instead. Now we're just finishing off the gloves here with this little sheet of clay, measuring it, making sure it's the right size, blending everything together. And then to add some more detail to the glove, we're just going to add some snakes of clay and add that nice fabric texture. Not bad. Time for the other hand. Then once the gloves, hands, wrinkles, and all that are looking pretty good, it's time to give him a nice little shoulder cape. So I just cut this out of a sheet of clay, added some seams. I'm just attaching it like that, and I'm just sort of Frankensteining all of these scrap pieces of clay together to finish it off. And this worked a lot better than I thought it was going to. Now we're just refining everything, adding some seams and stitching to a couple different places. Now we're just going to add some little holes to thread some string through. This is going to be the sort of clasp on the front of his cape. That came out really nice. A little more stitching here and there. Now it's time to make his hat. Just shaping this out. This was a ball of clay that I flattened in my fingertips, cutting out a center for his head, trimming it to size, and then attaching it out of frame. Now we're going to make the top of the hat, shaping that out as well, rolling it on the side, and then sticking it on. And the hat came out a lot better than I thought it was going to. Hats always give me anxiety, I don't know why, but this one was pretty easy. Now we're just going to brush the entire surface with clay softener, all of the uncured areas, to remove fingerprints. Then he's ready for his final bake. Then once he's baked and completely cooled down, it's time for the easiest paint job I think I've ever done. Now throughout the entire process of me making this guy, I pictured him being completely black, but I just wanted to see what a brown mask would look like instead of a pure black one, so we're just painting it brown first. Now we're just going to go in and paint every other inch of him completely black. And then all of the paints that I use for this guy are Folk Art brand matte acrylics. And then the further I get, the more I don't like the brown mask, so I'm just sort of shading it really quick to see if I like it anymore. And I don't, so we're just gonna paint all of it black. And seriously, I loved him just like this, but we got a couple more details to paint. So here I'm just dry brushing some dark gray over the surface to bring out some of those details. Now we're gonna paint the metal around the lens's pewter. And we're going to use that color for the top of the cane as well, and the little detail at the bottom, and then the belt buckle. Now I'm just adding some dark brown to the rope and bag, brightening up the staff a little bit with some silver. And then just for another level of dimension, I am adding some matte varnish to the mask, gloves, and belt, just to make them look a little bit more like leather and differentiate them from the rest of the black areas. Now I'm just taking a toothpick to scrape off the paint from the cabochons. And he's done! The Plague Doctor is complete. Let me know what you think of him in the comments, and thank you so much again for suggesting him. And then if you use any of the tips and techniques that I use in this video on your own projects, share them to Instagram, Facebook, or Twitter, tag me at AceOfClay or hashtag AceOfClay so I can check them out. And that's a wrap. I really hope you like the Plague Doctor. Thank you so much for suggesting him. Let me know how you think I did in the comments. And then before we close out, let's talk about our sponsor, Audible. Thank you, Audible, for sponsoring this video. Audible content includes an unmatched selection of audiobooks, original audio shows, news, and comedy. Listen to Audible on the go, while you're shopping, while you're cooking, going to the gym, traveling the world. You can listen anytime, anywhere, and on any device. On your phone, Alexa, Bluetooth, anything. Right now, I'm actually in the middle of listening to a couple different audiobooks. I love listening before I go to bed on my phone. It just makes me forget the world and the stuff that I have to do the next day. I also like to listen when I'm sculpting, of course. I'm a sucker for business topics and like personal growth, so it comes as no surprise that I'm listening to Crushing It by Gary Vee for the second time. I also love their collection of audiobooks on social media marketing, personal branding, and then if I'm in the mood for something a little more fun, maybe I'll check out the fiction section and listen to something by Tolkien. So if you like what you hear and you want to try Audible for yourself, go to audible.com/aceofclay or text aceofclay to 500-500 and start listening with an exclusive 30-day free trial, 1 free audiobook of your choice, and 2 Audible originals absolutely free. And as always, thank you so much for watching and being here. Be sure to like, comment, and subscribe, and then follow me on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter for more content at aceofclay, and I will see you in the next video.